Hey guys, before the final episode of Season 6, I remember feeling like the Tyrells, and more specifically Margery's story, weren't really done. Like a lot of you, Margery was one of my favorite characters for some reason. I'm kidding, there's a lot of reasons that I really liked her, besides the obvious. She's really smart, she's kind, she was able to best Cersei in their war more than once, but her story seemed to end kind of in the middle. There seemed to be a lot more to her story that we didn't see. And in this video, I'm going to try and figure out why, and what was the purpose, what was the idea. And let's also discuss a bit about why Dorne sucked. If we look a bit at the Tyrells' history, they used to serve the house that controlled Highgarden, acting as their stewards, staying close to power, waiting for their moment, growing their power, and when the opportunity struck during Aegon's conquest, because they were so close to power when their king died, a Tyrell was acting Lord of the Reach, and he yielded Highgarden. As a result, and as a reward, House Tyrell became the house that rules the Reach. I'm not saying they planned for this to happen necessarily, but it is my opinion that they chose to stay close to power and grow, and thought that that would breed more power, and they were right. Jumping to Robert's rebellion, the Tyrells chose to side with the Mad King because they felt like they owed the Targaryens for giving them the Reach, and they actually gave Robert his first and only defeat. So what did they do then? Well, instead of risking their army anymore, they decided to lay siege to Storm's End, Robert's castle, and just bide their time. Instead of fighting Robert again and risking losing more troops, or even upsetting Robert even more, or not doing anything and betraying the Mad King, they decided to take the lowest risk option. When the Mad King lost, they folded their tails and went back to King's Landing without any fight, because it didn't make any sense to continue fighting a losing battle. Now, if we jump back to the show, we see that the Tyrells backed Renly, and the same thing sort of happened again. Renly didn't take any risks himself. He just had feasts, jumping from place to place, and sort of hoping that the rest of the contenders would kill each other off, before he had to actually do anything, and who do you think was consoling him all along the way? Do you guys see a pattern here? They were too careful and too calculated. They always waited for the right opportunity to make their move. And in this situation, they simply waited too long. Cersei, to her credit, took a risk, and it paid off. The Tyrells were just too safe. When you play the game that way, when you're afraid to make enemies or afraid to take a risky move because it could blow up in your face, you also risk missing out on some of the rewards that come with making the risky moves. Just look what we know about the plan Margery had. Instead of just fighting the Faith head-on like the Lannisters wanted, she chose the safe approach, brokering peace with the Faith and working with them, telling her grandmother to leave her to minimize the risk, and then... If only she had not forgotten who she was working against.
If you ever call me sister again, I'll have you strangled in your sleep.
The words of their house is growing strong, which really fits everything I said about them. Biding their time, growing stronger and stronger, and in this case, they waited too long and were never able to act upon the power that they had grown. And now to discuss sort of the point of their storyline. To understand this, you have to understand the difference between the show and the books first. The books, for those of you who haven't read them, are on a much larger scale. There are more players in the books. They have the person who claims to be Aegon, the son of Rhaegar, they have Lady Stoneheart, and they have Dorne. To get a bit off topic for a second, this was one of the reasons that Dorne didn't turn out well. The show didn't have enough time to develop Dorne like the books did, and even if they did have that time, it would make the show even more complex, and for some of you who watch these videos, that might be fine. But for the more casual viewers, it's a show that's already hard to follow, so tacking on a Dorne storyline could have made a show that was already a little confusing far too confusing. The reason that they did not cut Dorne completely from the show is that they had already sent Myrcella there, and they play a role in the future, and they needed to do something with Jaime and Bronn because, unlike the books, the show won't bench Jaime for too long. He's too popular. Now, the fact that the acting and stuff weren't great was bad planning. This was the first time that they had invented a storyline out of thin air, and I don't think it had the thought behind it that the rest of the show has. Okay, back to the Tyrells, and specifically Margery. I think this was the storyline the show chose to focus on to show the other players on the board, not just the main ones that we already know. I mean, this choice was easy for them because the Tyrells are also the most important to the main characters we do know. Anyway, the show chose to use the Tyrells to show us the other players on the board, but we never really fully saw their side. It's like in other TV shows when they choose to focus on a supporting character for an episode and we see the main character in glimpses without knowing exactly what he's doing or planning. We never saw it from their side. They may have had a great plan for the future. For all we know, Margery planned to have Cersei killed, hopefully, and then she would take control of Casterly Lock through Tommen. This is part of the beauty of the show, and sometimes we might experience this again with Littlefinger or Varys, and it's how the real world works. Sometimes they stop before you start, sometimes in the middle. Very rarely everyone gets to the end of the story that they were planning. Now, one last thing I want to talk about is to thank you guys for your support. This channel is about opinions and discussions, and the comments I'm getting and the thoughts behind them is what the channel is really about, and I do thank you guys. This is a fairly new channel, and I don't take for granted that we already have over 1,600 subscribers and 6 Twitter followers. I'm very glad for all the support and very grateful. Hopefully we'll be able to grow and give you guys even better content in the future. Like always, if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe and follow me at @WatchersPod, and I'll see you guys on the next video. As always, thanks and have a great day.